Hello and welcome to the Empowered Couples Podcast, where here you get modern, non-boring relationship advice for you and your partner to communicate like pros, fight smarter, and stay on the same team no matter the challenge that you face. I am one of your hosts, Aaron Freeman.
And I'm Jocelyn Freeman, but you all just know us as the Freemans.
And welcome to this episode on specific ways that effort declines in a marriage and 5 ways to step it back up.
If you've been a listener of ours, you know that we're never striving for perfection. That's not what we're asking of you. But in today's episode, we are inviting you to step it up, to be the best you can be, which doesn't have to be perfect. It's just putting effort and intention into specific areas that you forget about.
An effort might sound like something really simple, but I've thought about this a lot. Sports gives us a great analogy, so don't let me lose any of the female listeners right off the bat.
There's a lot of women that like sports too, I just want to say.
That's true. That's true. Okay, my bad.
Little generalization there.
So, but maybe founded. Men like sports more, I believe. But either way, we get where we're going. So effort declines. And so when you think about that, you're probably like, oh, sure. But I want to go deeper into that effort declines when you achieve what you set out to. Now, in sports, we have a very clear picture of when this happens and what happens as an outcome of that. So when you're an athlete, or when someone is an athlete and reaches the pinnacle, many times they start to lose the hunger and the drive that initially got them there. What I was thinking about before this podcast was those that have seen that movie Rush. It's about Formula One race car drivers, James Hunt, Niki Lauda, and they battle for this for a couple of seasons, and James Hunt ends up winning the championship. And then he flies off at the end of the movie, and then it tells you that that was the last championship he won, and he retires the next year, where Niki Lauda, he went on to be one of the best Formula One racers of all time. Mm-hmm. Now, another example we're all very familiar with would be Michael Jordan. Now, he reached a pinnacle, won 3 championships, and then he goes off and plays baseball. And that was crazy. I actually remember being a kid why is he playing in the minor leagues for the White Sox? This is the greatest basketball player already. And then he comes back. So we hear about the greats that come back. But there's so often that when an athlete reaches a pinnacle, they don't end up having the drive. And if you think about that, it's not actually realistic to sustain that level of effort indefinitely. Okay, so what does this mean for you? Personally, in your own life, whether it is a professional pursuit, a personal development pursuit, a physical fitness pursuit, you can see that when you've reached what you set out for, you just don't maintain the same level of effort.
Unless it's become habits, or that you're really creating a plan.
Yeah, and I would say even still, it's not going to be to the same level. Mm-hmm. So, all right, this is a marriage podcast. So what does this mean for your marriage? Mm-hmm. Well, it's the same principle, but it's a little more tricky because it's not as tangible. You're not as consciously set on what you're achieving in your marriage. Mm-hmm. Now, you did say, oh, we're going to get married. We're going to build the home and family life. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of understood. And then so for a lot of couples, when you reach that, you don't set up something else. So effort does start to decline. And we want to go over in what ways and the impact. But it's just that you have to continue to put in effort to cultivate an environment of love and connection. Otherwise, the decline of the effort does decline the feeling of love, passion, of connection. Now, it is slower, though, which we'll go into.
Yeah, one thing I want to make sure is clear, because you could hear the word effort and think, Freemans, what are you talking about? From sun up to sundown, I am doing a lot, right? Yeah. If you have kids, obviously, there's a lot that goes into it.
Yeah, what are you talking about? I have a max effort every day.
Right, so we aren't saying that. And even if you don't have kids, you're doing a lot. Dishes and cleaning and working and making money and going to take care of family. There's a lot you're quote unquote doing, but 2 roommates could be doing that and you could survive and you could just be getting by. I don't think that's what you're shooting for. I don't think you're hey, let's become complacent and become roommates and just coast in life. You down?
Yeah.
Like, there's, of course, the management. You hear us talk about that in a lot of episodes. What we're going to talk about today with this effort is to your experience in the relationship. How you actually feel, using the words you said, right? Like feeling connection. But I also would just say like joy, vitality, aliveness together. So yeah, we're going to get into the specific places that it lowers or that your effort declines and then ways to step it up. But before that, because as we go through these, you're going to go, okay, Freemans, these are so good. You're right. I forget about these, or I do it for 3 days and then I forget. That is why literally today's episode is perfect, the perfect reason to sign up for the 30-day couples challenge that is starting this week. So when you're hearing this episode, you don't have time to wait anymore, right? There's just right now to go and sign up, and you can go to the URL mycoupleschallenge.com, or the link will be in the show notes. And what we're doing for these 30 days, because I know that can sound like a long time, is giving you very realistic, simple prompts and actions to do daily. Like you're already living, right? You're already going to see each other in the morning or at night, or you're going to talk on the phone. We're just giving you ways to make those better experiences.
Because it's easy to feel that everything else takes priority over this actual connection, the love, the joy between the two of you.
Yep.
Hence why we're calling it
Prioritize
us.
Yes.
30-day couples challenge.
Exactly. So with that said, the challenge, you can read everything about it, the structure, how simple it is, how realistic it is. So again, go to mycoupleschallenge.com. But Aaron, why don't you start to take us into the different places that we see effort decline?
And this is just going to be a few of the places. So then we can get right into the places you can focus your effort. But the first one is lower effort shows up in the amount of the love deposits that you make towards your partner.
So if they're a new listener, what does love deposit mean?
Well, it's the gesture, whether obvious or subtle, that is making an attempt to show connection or love with your partner. Now, more simply, we break it down to say, if you think of every interaction between you and your partner, it's either a deposit into the love account or it's a withdrawal.
Like a love account, like a bank account. Use that kind of analogy, right?
It's a subjective emotional feeling of how loved and connected you feel with your partner. And that it goes up and down all the time. And it's really pertinent to the marriage to focus on where you are. Because as the love deposits go down, then your love account level goes down. And the problem with that is the low love account leads to a few different things, but mainly that simple things will be more personal. You'll feel more reactive and on edge with each other. And then when that happens, you make more withdrawals. You further decrease the love account, and then conflicts start to arise. You can escalate things further. Then on from there, if you don't repair, it gets deeper and deeper until, like last week, you're in a hard season of marriage.
And it's just like a quick spiral down.
Yeah.
Like it just,
so bring this all the way back. Where you decrease your effort is in the love deposits that you make to each other.
Exactly. Because you get distracted, you get busy, you're prioritizing all the things to do, and you forget to make those deposits. So don't worry, we're going to give you positive things to focus on. But let's go into the second place that we see effort lower, which is with quick, can even be harsh, and unthoughtful communication responses. Right? So it's like you're trying to go 1,000,000 miles an hour. And so you just say something quickly. You don't even think about it. You're just like, blah, and maybe it's not that kind, or maybe it feels sharp. Maybe it feels almost like you're already annoyed with them when it was going to be just like a neutral question. That's not me last night or anything, but I kind of did this one a little bit. Just saying, we're not perfect with this, but just notice where you've gotten so maybe unintentional with the way you're communicating with your partner, how your tone sounds, just you're being present, just the way you respond to them.
So let's move into the third one. And this is not a complete list. This is the ones that we just thought about that were most prevalent, certainly in our own life, but in meaning with the people that we're coaching. So sexual drive and passion. So your effort declines in keeping your intimate life alive, keeping the passion going, whether it's actually initiating intimacy, expressions for affection, just anything in that realm. This isn't a podcast specifically on intimacy, but that's pretty clear. That's an easy one that goes down. You think about being in the relationship early on, like most of your attempts and interactions are towards intimacy and passion and sex.
You're talking about in the beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And as you get into life, you managing things, that just naturally falls out. Hence why people even call it a honeymoon phase. Doesn't necessarily mean that you can't bring that back, but from a very normalized perspective, we're not in the honeymoon phase anymore, which is just that your effort declined in your intimacy.
I think a big factor that people don't realize with the intimacy, passion, sex is whether you go to bed at the same time or if you actually create time throughout the day. Like, we can't say it enough. And we did a couple interviews with people who focus on sex and intimacy last year on the podcast. And you might not be in the mood to be intimate at 10 p.m. at night when you have given all of your energy at the end of the day. And you certainly won't be able to be intimate if one of you is still out in the living room watching TV and you're in the bedroom reading. And so maybe if you're not a night person, then you have to put effort into, are we going to have a little morning meeting together? Or are we going to make time around lunch? Or when are we going to actually create time? So I know that kind of went into a solution, but I just felt like saying that part of putting effort into the intimate area of life is actually talking about when is the most opportune time for us.
And then the last place we wanted to cover is just the things in life that have it feel overall like the marriage is coasting. It can feel that you're just doing the management, the routine. It could go as far as saying that it feels stale. You already mentioned earlier, it leads to the feeling like you are just roommates or managers of life.
Yeah, exactly. Which is really the whole theme of this episode. You stop putting effort into the experience that you and your partner are having. So I think that's a perfect tie-in to go to 5 places to step it up so that you can focus on your effort in the most meaningful areas. Because again, we're not talking about doing more chores. Like, you both are doing a lot. So this is more about the experience that the two of you are having within the partnership. What's the first one, Aaron?
Well, might come as a surprise, but it's making more love deposits.
Right.
So these are the small gestures of love, doing things that matter to them specifically. People often think of the love languages, but it's beyond that for us, because if you do think of every interaction that you have with your partner, either being a deposit or withdrawal, then as we said in a previous episode, it becomes a net game. Mm-hmm. Meaning, are you net positive or net negative from the deposits to the withdrawals? Now, it's a whole other thing to reduce your withdrawals, but we want to focus today on your effort declining is specifically on you make less deposits. So do you have some quick examples of deposits?
I mean, there literally could be thousands, but just a few that came to mind, like bringing them a cup of coffee. They're getting ready in the morning and it's like, hey, here you go, hun. Or it could be writing them a little sticky note that you put by their toothbrush, or playing their favorite song while you cook and actually, say, hey, I want to play this song. I know you really like this one. So it can be literally so many things, and you just have to put some thought into what's a small gesture that would have them realize I'm thinking of them. Mm-hmm. And again, that's just like a little reason the 30-day couples challenge can simplify that, because we're going to give you daily ideas for that. And they're not all acts of service, by the way. They're also communication tips, conversation starters. There is an array of different types of love deposits, but we're simplifying that in the 30-day couples challenge.
I would just give some extra ones because I see myself declining in the effort. I mean, how much we...
Phew, so glad you realized this.
Yeah. Yeah. If I didn't say it yesterday, I meant to do that too. We do a lot with Sky, and it's funny that the Montessori is closed sometimes. And so how much there is with, raising a child might seem obvious. And then running a business together and being home a lot and being around each other all the time. For me, that there's even just as I walk by you, kind of rubbing my hand on your back. Mm-hmm. Or specifically, actually, I don't want to give anything away.
Okay.
Because we're going to go further. But I'll just use that as an example. Yeah. It's, I could either walk by you right, in the house because I'm cooking something or I'm picking up something off the floor, I just really try to focus on, I could just do the default thing, or is there something I could do as a gesture to you instead?
Yes, absolutely. So going into the second place to step it up with your effort is in showing interest in them. Not just in the things they do, but how they're feeling about it. And so that means you have to ask good questions. Instead of the same old, hey, how was your day at work? And then you're going to get the simple, like, oh, it was fine, or it was stressful, or it was long. Like, ask questions that show you're interested in what matters to them. So an example could be, hey, how's it been going with fill in the blank, a project at work? Or, hey, I know you're working on your health. How's it going with that?
Well, let me share something because that's a good point. And this is how you know you did that well. Because if you asked me that, I would think to myself, wow, thanks for remembering and asking about that, right? That's kind of like what you're searching for. Because when you said that, that reminded me of how I would feel if you asked me about something that maybe I mentioned one time, but it was important to me, we haven't talked about. It's like, oh, wow, thanks for remembering that.
Yep, exactly. So another one could be, how have you been feeling about? So it could be, hey, how are you feeling about things going with your sister? Or, hey, how are things going? How do you feel about how things are going with our kid? Because maybe there's like a strained relationship, or you're working on toddler life, for example. Hey, how are you feeling with, what we're facing here? So it could be about, how's it going? How's it feeling? Or, hey, give me some updates. Just asking questions that show you're interested, you're paying attention, you want to know about how they're doing with things that they're up to in life, right? So Aaron, you want to introduce the third place to step it up?
It's expressing appreciation. Now, if you're at a place where you're just trying to increase your love deposits, right? So we would let you get away with it being about usual stuff. Like if you're not expressing appreciation about what they just normally do, whether it's like household items or how they manage the finances or their effort at work or their progress with the kids, like whatever it is. If you haven't been doing the normal stuff, there you go. Step it up there. Now, as a bonus, though, this is me personally. This might not have been what Jocelyn said. But if I think about where does appreciation really become meaningful, I think it's where there was a choice to be made.
What do you mean?
Well, thank you for asking. So it's one thing to appreciate a routine or habit, something that they were going to do already. And like I said, if you're not appreciating those things already, that's number one. So for example, though, it's like how someone looks. I could appreciate you for how you look. That might be something I haven't done recently. But as far as a choice, you didn't necessarily have to wake up and choose to look the way that you do.
I don't know. Women, we got to put some effort into it. So there is a choice to do our hair.
There's a certain level in which your base physical appearance is not a choice you have to make each day. Your body wakes up and the cells and your DNA structure put it together so you look the same. So what I'm getting to is there's no real choice in the physical appearance. So I can say, oh, you look great. And then the part's like, okay, well, thanks. But if you didn't have to choose, it's not really acknowledging much. So if there is a clear decision point and your partner had to consciously choose one to be more impactful, that's a place to really hone in on. Now, an example of this would be how they chose to respond in a moment of a child breakdown. There were two clear paths here. It could have gotten really upset. They could have gotten really defensive. They could have gotten loud. And if you notice, this could have went either way, and they chose to do a gentle parenting or a conscious parenting approach, or like sit down and understand where that emotion was coming from and let the child get expressed. That's a big deal. That's something you should appreciate.
So can I just put that into words of like what that might sound like before your next example?
I feel like I gave a lot of words.
Well, I think it could sound like, hey, I noticed that.
Oh, I see what you mean.
Yeah. I know that, Johnny was, showing big emotions and you were so calm. And I noticed that really helped. Right. So recognizing the behavior as an acknowledgement, not like, oh, phew, you finally did good with that, right? You don't want to make it like an underhanded remark.
I misinterpreted what you initially
Yes.
meant. I was going to do my examples and then we'll go. But no, it's exactly right. That's a great way to phrase it. One other easy one as an example would be where your partner kept an agreement for a time of conflict rather than letting themselves, quote unquote, off the hook and just by default react to you with a sharp comment or a comparison or comparing them to something from the past, right? Bringing something up from the past. So you want to give an example
Yeah.
of how that would then sound? Too?
Yeah, I think it would just be like, in the debrief after the argument, hey, I want you to know I really noticed that instead of bringing up the past, you just took a pause, right? Or, hey, I really noticed that instead of, yelling because you were triggered, that you just told me what you need. Like, I really appreciate that and that helps me. So yeah, just really recognizing the agreement. And if you're a new listener and you're like, what do you mean, Freeman's, about agreements for times of conflict? Those are things we've covered in previous episodes specifically about conflict. So scroll the titles. It is in our book, The Argument Hangover, which we're sorry is still sold out right now. It will get restocked at some point. But anyway, you can hear some previous episodes about agreements for times of conflict.
So let me summarize this one. Expressing appreciation, level 1, for the usual stuff they do. But secondly, if you can actively start to notice the places that a decision point was there for your partner and they chose more of a positive route than a negative or reactive default route, that's a pretty key place to express appreciation.
Absolutely. So then going into the fourth place to step it up in your effort is with how you greet them. And this could be an in-person greeting. It can also be on the phone. Right? Like imagine, picking up the phone and like, hey, what's up? Like,
What do you want?
Hey, I'm in a meeting. What's up? It just can feel so like rushed or kind of like, I even heard a couple recently say, one of the partners goes, I feel like I'm bothering them, and you don't want your partner to feel like they're a bother to you.
Oh, here's another one. You see their name on your phone, so you hit accept. That's probably even a key thing to hit accept and not decline. But you put the phone to your ear and you say, yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I think I've done that. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, that is true. Right. Or in person, maybe they walk in the door because maybe they're outside the home for work, you're at home, or maybe you work from home and they walk in and you just keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
And like, oh, hey, by the way, can you grab me that from the, and you like even just give them some task to do right when they walk in. And
Here's
so,
us nowadays
yeah.
too. It's like, well, we don't go anywhere, so we don't
Yeah,
come in the door.
we're
But it's
together
like I
all
could
the
come
time.
back from the gym. There's a poo diaper in Sky's room.
Okay, I got it. But okay, so the greeting. So whether it is the phone, whether it's in person, put just a little bit more enthusiasm into it. We're not saying you need to like be, oh my God, hello, over the top, faking it, but just showing that it's like, hey, it's you. I'm so glad it's you. And I love you and I'm so happy you're home. Or, hey, so on the phone, for example, right? It could just be as simple as like, hey, you. I'm so glad it's you. Or, hey, how's it going? Just a little, like change your tone a little bit so it sounds enthusiastic, which actually is a good segue. Can I go into the next one?
Sure.
To this last one, which is so easily forgotten. And that is stepping it up, putting more effort into your mood and the attitude that you bring into the environment.
Yeah, easily forgotten.
You wake up and do you just kind of seem like either a zombie or do you seem cranky right away or do you seem rushed and stressed already?
Well, let me throw something else
Yeah.
actually in there. I get what you mean, like zombie, rushed. But where I fall in, it's just you wake up and I guess I don't have the name for the attitude, but it's like, it's another day.
Like same
I don't
old,
want to say
same old.
humdrum, but it's like, okay, we're going to do the same tasks. Okay, I'm awake. I brush my teeth. We get the lunch made. Or you do some emails.
Yeah.
It just, whatever the activity,
It's just like
your
bland.
attitude is just, okay, here's another day
Yeah.
with my partner. You woke up with them. They're here. And there's just definitely a different way of effort you could show up with your attitude
Yes.
for the day. Are you showing enthusiasm? Are you joyful? Are you at least having a positive outlook? Are you celebrating, or are you appreciating that you woke up?
Or at least just being
Or that,
peaceful.
that your partner is here with you.
Yeah. And I know the word celebration might see like, okay, Freeman's, that's a far
Yeah.
stretch to be like a Monday morning. Like,
I mean, because we're not celebrating at 5 a.m. necessarily.
But I think at least being peaceful, and not only in the morning, but another place that we've heard couples refer to quite a bit. And in particular, I notice men have said this, which is, at the end of the day, when we're just kind of coming back together, if they're in separate places or separate roles, it's like, I come home and they're just like already stressed, or they're already venting. They're already telling me about how hard something was in the day. And it's like, wow, I'm trying to come back home, unwind, reconnect to family life. And so we're not saying that you have to be a happy person in all moments, but just putting some thought into what kind of an environment do I want to co-create with my partner? Do I want it to be an environment of stress or grumpiness or frustration or just being a really bland partner? Or do I want it to be peaceful, joyful, connective, just a thriving environment?
Here's a question. Is it nice for my partner to be around me?
Ooh, okay. That is good.
I was going to say enjoyable, but even nice.
Nice. Is it
enjoyable?
pleasant?
Is it pleasant? There you go.
Yes. Is it pleasant?
Am I pleasant for my partner to be around?
That is so good. That might be the mic drop moment of the episode. I mean, that question, like, you got to really be honest with yourself. And so just with this one, focusing on what attitude do I want to be bringing? What environment am I co-creating? So with that, we hope that all 5 of these are things you're going to be focusing on. We know you're busy. We know that you have your direction in a million different places. So please let us simplify this for you with the 30-day couples challenge. Because unless you're great at taking notes, you might not have written these down, and you might do one tomorrow and then forget in 3 days. But if you are getting daily prompts from us for 30 days, direct coaching from us to you in your inbox, and you stay consistent, you will feel the change in your relationship. You'll feel the change within yourself. So it's a must do. You don't even have an option. All right, you do, but do it. Go to mycoupleschallenge.com and sign up before it starts this week, you guys. There's no more waiting. But we really hope that you took away value from this episode. We're rooting for you, and we will talk to you on the next episode.